The Holloway farmhouse sat at the far edge of Miller's Valley, surrounded by 100 acres of dying corn and a silence that felt heavier than air. When Ethan and Mara Holloway first drove up the gravel road, the house looked almost peaceful, old but standing proud, with chipped white paint and a porch that leaned slightly to the left. To anyone else, it might have looked haunted. To them, it looked like a fresh start. They had left the city to escape the noise and the bills that never stopped piling up. Here, they could breathe again, or so they thought. The first nights passed quietly. They unpacked boxes, fixed the fence that bowed in the middle, and laughed about the strange smell that seemed to rise from the well at dusk. The locals at Miller's Diner had warned them that the land had a bad history, that it wasn't right. Ethan had laughed it off. Every old town's got ghost stories, he'd said. But sometimes, the silence in the fields seemed to listen back. The third night, Mara woke to a sound she couldn't place. A low hum, deep and distant, like the earth itself groaning. She turned to Ethan. "Do you hear that?" He blinked in the dark, half asleep. The hum faded, leaving only the soft creak of the house settling. But then it came again, slow, pulsing, as though something massive was turning beneath them. Ethan muttered, "Old pipes. House this old's bound to make noise." Mara didn't believe it, but she said nothing. By morning, she noticed the clock on the wall had stopped. Not just paused, but shifted 5 hours behind. The window shadows stretched at odd angles that didn't match the sun. In the hallway mirror, her reflection seemed to hesitate half a second before following her movements. Ethan brushed it all off. "We're tired. We're just adjusting to country life." Yet that night, he too woke up cold, feeling the floor vibrate faintly beneath the bed, as if a heartbeat was echoing through the wood. On the 5th day, Ethan was out near the barn when he found it. The ground under the hay felt uneven. He cleared it and saw a rusted metal hatch, square and bolted shut with 3 heavy locks. The air around it smelled wrong, damp, metallic, faintly sweet like something rotting. He called for Mara, and she came out, pulling her sweater tight against the sudden chill. "You ever see this before?" She shook her head. "Maybe a root cellar." Ethan fetched a hammer from the tool shed. The locks crumbled easily, falling apart like brittle bone. When he pried the hatch open, a breath of cold air rose out, colder than the November wind, carrying a scent of iron and decay. Inside was a staircase descending into total blackness. He shone his flashlight down, expecting dirt walls or wooden beams. But what reflected back wasn't either. The light hit a surface that seemed smooth and wet, like stone covered in oil. "Ethan," Mara said quietly, "don't go down there." He hesitated at the edge, his light trembling. "It's part of the house. We should know what's under us." The first step groaned beneath his weight. The second echoed strangely, not like wood, but like striking metal underwater. The deeper he went, the thicker the air became, humid and vibrating with that same faint pulse he'd felt through the floor. The walls were covered in markings, spirals, eyes and circles cut deep, glowing faintly as the light moved over them. It was as if someone had carved symbols into living flesh. He called up, "Mara, are you hearing this?" But his voice didn't echo. It vanished the moment it left his lips. At the bottom of the stairs, the tunnel opened wider, revealing a chamber that stretched beyond the reach of his light. The walls curved inward and outward at the same time. Impossible geometry that made his head throb. Then the beam of his flashlight landed on something in the center of the space. It was black, not the color black, but the absence of color altogether. A shape that refused definition, its surface rippling like liquid shadow. As he watched, it rose slightly, inhaling, and the air around him moved with it. Ethan's breath hitched. The pulse in the air grew louder, matching his heartbeat, until he couldn't tell which was which. A deep voice filled his head. Not words, but an understanding. "It has always been here. It will always be here. He stumbled back, hitting the stairs. The light flickered and died. The last thing he saw before darkness swallowed everything was the surface of that thing shifting toward him, reaching without movement, like gravity pulling thought itself. He ran. He climbed without thinking, his hands slipping on the steps, his lungs burning. When he burst through the hatch, he slammed it shut and threw himself back, panting. Mara grabbed him, eyes wide. "What did you see?" He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. "It's not a cellar," he finally whispered. "It's alive down there." The air in the barn felt wrong now, thick and vibrating. The animals in the distance had gone silent. Even the crickets had stopped. Outside, the last light of evening faded faster than it should have, swallowing the sky in grey before the sun had fully set. Mara wanted to leave right away. She packed a few bags, trembling, while Ethan tried the truck. It wouldn't start. The radio only hissed. He looked at his phone. No signal, not even the faintest flicker of reception. The world beyond their fence line looked perfectly still. No wind moved the corn. No sound came from the trees. As the night deepened, the groaning started again. This time it wasn't distant. It came from beneath them, shaking the floorboards of the house. Mara clutched Ethan's arm, her voice shaking. "You said it was alive. What if it's waking up?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. The sound was growing, a rhythmic thrum that filled every inch of air, making their teeth ache. The lights flickered. From outside, the corn began to move again, all at once, bending toward the house as though drawn by the same breath that rose from the earth. Ethan ran to the window, staring into the fields. Every stalk leaned inward, swaying in perfect unison, and just for a second, he thought he saw the ground ripple, not like wind through plants, but like something beneath the soil was stretching. Mara's voice broke behind him. "Ethan, we shouldn't have opened it." The hum in the floor grew stronger, vibrating through their feet, through their bones. The house creaked and moaned, as if trying to resist being pulled downward. The silence between each pulse was worse, heavy, expectant. Outside, the horizon flickered faintly, like distant lightning trapped beneath the earth. Ethan turned to Mara, face pale in the dim light. "We'll leave at first light," he said, but even as he spoke, the words felt hollow. The air trembled again, and somewhere deep beneath them, something vast and ancient seemed to stir, not waking from sleep, but from waiting. The wind died completely. The world held its breath, and then the rocking chair by the window began to move. The night pressed against the Holloway farmhouse like a living thing. The walls groaned and flexed. The floorboards rose and fell in rhythm with that deep, awful heartbeat coming from beneath the ground. Ethan could feel it vibrating through his bones, through the air, through the silence that had grown so heavy. It felt like pressure on his chest. Mara clutched his hand, her knuckles white. "It's coming from under the barn," she whispered. "It's coming from that thing you found." Her voice cracked halfway through the sentence, trembling. Ethan nodded, though he couldn't speak. His throat felt thick, his mind a swirl of panic and disbelief. The lamp flickered once, twice, then went out completely. The house sank into blackness. For a moment there was nothing. No sound, no light, just that pulse beating from the earth, like the heart of a colossal beast. Then came a new noise, a scraping, like wood bending and nails tearing. It came from beneath the kitchen. Mara screamed as the tiles began to lift, one by one, the floor arching upward, as though something enormous was pushing from below. Ethan grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward the front door. The handle wouldn't turn. The wood felt soft beneath his grip, warm almost, as if alive. "Back door!" he gasped. They stumbled through the hallway, the walls warping slightly as they passed. The wallpaper rippled like waves. When they reached the back entrance, The doorframe was already distorting, bending inward. The hinges moaned when Ethan tried to pull it open, but it refused. The house wasn't letting them out. The groaning below grew louder, now mixed with whispers. Thousands of faint voices murmuring in overlapping tones. None of them were clear, but all of them carried a strange, awful reverence. Mara's eyes were wide. "It's calling," she said. "Ethan, it's calling us." He turned to her, ready to tell her to stop talking nonsense. But when he looked at her face, he saw something flicker in her eyes, a reflection of the blackness from the hatch, shimmering faintly, like oil under her pupils. "We need to go upstairs," he said, forcing his voice steady. "The attic window. We can climb out from there." They ran. The staircase shook beneath them, as if the whole house were breathing. Behind them, something heavy shifted under the floor, dragging itself through the earth with slow, crushing movements. The house gave a deep, groaning sigh. Dust rained from the ceiling. By the time they reached the attic, the sound was deafening. Ethan smashed the window with his elbow, the glass shattering out into the cold night air. He stuck his head out and froze. There was no ground. The earth around the farmhouse had split wide open, forming a circular pit that stretched out into endless darkness. The fields were gone. The corn, the trees, the hills. All of it had sunk or been pulled inward. Only the farmhouse remained, teetering on the edge of a vast abyss. Mara stepped beside him, clutching his arm. Below, something moved. It wasn't light. It was the absence of it, a shifting darkness that rippled like water. As Ethan watched, faces began to form within it. Hundreds of human faces, twisted in silent agony, pressing against the darkness as if begging to be let out. Ethan staggered back from the window, choking on his breath. "It's the land," he said. "It's been feeding on everything. The soil, the animals, us." Mara stared into the pit, her body trembling, her lips moving as though repeating something he couldn't hear. "It's not feeding," she said quietly. "It's remembering." Before Ethan could ask what she meant, the floor shuddered violently. A crack ran up the wall behind them. The house tilted slightly, the sound of splitting wood echoing like a scream. The rocking chair in the corner began to move again, slow and steady, in rhythm with the pulse. The whispers rose into chanting now, a deep resonant hum that filled the air like a choir. The window panes vibrated, the roof beams groaned, the air was thick with dust and the metallic scent of blood. Ethan grabbed Mara's arm. "We're getting out." She didn't move. Her gaze was fixed on the window, her eyes wide, unblinking. "Ethan," she said softly, "look." He turned. The darkness in the pit had risen higher, closer. It wasn't just under the farmhouse anymore. It was swallowing it. The walls around them were warping inward, drawn toward the window as though pulled by gravity. And then Mara smiled. It wasn't a smile of relief or madness. It was awe. "Do you see it?" she whispered. "It's beautiful." "Mara!" Ethan shouted, shaking her. "Snap out of it!" She turned to him, her pupils completely black now. "It's calling me," she said. "It's showing me everything." Before he could stop her, she stepped toward the window and leaned out. For a split second, the faint moonlight outlined her body against the swirling dark below. And then she was gone. Not falling, not pulled, gone. Dissolved into the air like smoke. Ethan screamed her name, his voice breaking, echoing into nothing. The house lurched again, pitching forward toward the pit. He fell to his knees, gripping the floor as everything around him shook violently. The heartbeat beneath him was faster now, thunderous, shaking the very air. He crawled toward the rocking chair, which somehow remained perfectly upright in all the chaos, creaking back and forth as calmly as if nothing were happening. The light flickered once more, and he saw it. A figure forming in the corner, tall, featureless, made of the same shifting black substance as the thing below. It stretched toward him without moving, the space between them bending. Ethan backed away until his spine hit the wall. "What are you?" he whispered. The air around him vibrated, the same voice filling his head again. Vast, ancient, without language. "It has always been here. It will always be here." He covered his ears, screaming, but the voice was inside him. His vision blurred. The room seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions, walls folding into themselves. He reached for the hatch door that led downstairs, but it was gone. Everything was gone except the chair, the pulsing dark, and that sound. That endless, terrible heartbeat. Then the rocking stopped. Silence. Total and crushing. Ethan sat in the corner, gasping for air, eyes wide. The walls no longer moved. The pulse had faded, for the first time in hours. Or maybe days. He couldn't tell anymore. Everything was still, and then a voice broke the silence. "Ethan." It was Mara's voice. Soft, calm, and impossibly close. He turned, and for a moment, he thought he saw her. Standing by the window, her hair drifting as if underwater, her skin pale and glowing faintly. "Ethan," she said again. "It's beautiful down here." He blinked. She was gone. The attic was empty. When the sheriff came 3 months later, the farmhouse still stood at the edge of Miller's Valley. Though the land around it had changed, the fields were gone, replaced by uneven, spongy soil that gave slightly underfoot, as though something beneath was breathing. Inside, the walls curved subtly inward. Everything was coated in a thin black film. On the kitchen table lay a small leather-bound notebook. The last entry was written in uneven handwriting. "It's not under the farm. The farm is on it, and it's waking up." The sheriff closed the book slowly, his pulse quickening. The air in the room trembled faintly, a low vibration he could feel in his chest, but not here. He stepped outside, trying to shake the feeling that the house was watching him. As he reached his car, a gust of wind passed through the valley for the first time in weeks. It carried faint whispers, overlapping, almost like voices. One of them sounded eerily like his own name.
Please like and subscribe channel Fear Frequency for more horror stories. Thank you.